Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with our daily quiz and look at question number 1. Consider the following statements. Number 1, India formally recognized Israel in 1992 when full diplomatic relations were established between India and Israel. Number 2, no Indian Prime Minister has made an official visit to Israel. Number 3, India has never voted in support of Israel at the United Nations or any of its committees. Which of the above statements is or are correct? The year was 1950 when India recognized Israel as a state, but the full diplomatic relations were established only in the year 1992 when embassies were opened in each other's countries. So India formally recognized Israel in 1950, but full diplomatic relations were established in 1992. That is why statement 1 is incorrect. No Indian Prime Minister has made an official visit to Israel. This statement is also incorrect because 2017 Prime Minister Modi visited Israel, which was the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Israel. Statement 3 is also incorrect because the year was 2019 when India voted in support of Israel at United Nations Economic and Social Council. Here, a Palestinian human rights organization, which Israel says is a terrorist organization, Shahid wanted observer status at the United Nations. India voted in favor of Israel to block this move. That is why which of the above statements is or are correct? All these statements are incorrect. None of the above is the right answer. What is the context? This conflict between Israel and Palestine, which is dominating the news headlines of late. Staying with Israel and India, which of the following is or are weapons India has purchased from Israel? Heron, Spider, Chinook, Python. Heron is basically a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. Spider is an air defense system, short and medium range air defense system. It's also a mobile air defense system. Chinook is basically a transport helicopter, but it is of the United States. And Python is an air-to-air missile. So which of the following is or are weapons India has purchased from Israel? Heron, Spider, Python. 1, 2, 4. D is the right answer. Let's look at question number 3. But first up, what is the context? Adoption issues to the fore as COVID-19 leaves many orphaned. Statement number 1. Central Adoption Resource Authority is an advisory body of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. CARA is designated as the central authority to deal with inter-country adoptions. India has not ratified the Hague Convention on Inter-Country Adoption 1993. Which of the above statements is or are correct? CARA is basically a statutory body under Ministry of Women and Child Development. This body was set up in the year 1990. That is why statement 1 is incorrect. But yes, statement 2 is correct because it is a designated body, central authority to deal with inter-country adoptions. But the year was 2003 when India ratified the Hague Convention on Inter-Country Adoption. So statement 3 is incorrect. B, only 2 is the right answer. Now let's look at question number 4. But first up, what is the context? Restructuring the tribunal system in India. This is today's The Hindu newspaper. It says it is time to set up a National Tribunals Commission. What is the question? Statement 1. National Tribunals Commission is an independent autonomous body responsible for oversight as well as administration of tribunals, and it was constituted in 2019. The establishment of NTC was suggested by the Supreme Court in Roger Matthew case 2019. Which of the above statements is or are incorrect? Both these statements are incorrect. C is the right answer. Why? National Tribunals Commission, it was the idea of this NTC was mooted by the Supreme Court in L. Chandra Kumar versus Union of India way back in 1997, but it has still not seen the light of the day. It has still not been constituted. That is why statement 1 is incorrect. In Roger Matthew case 2019, Supreme Court basically said that if a tribunal is to be abolished, then before abolishing that tribunal, a judicial impact assessment should be done. This is something which was suggested by the Supreme Court in the Roger Matthew case. Both these statements are incorrect. C is the right answer. Now let's look at a previous year's question paper, Prelims 2016. Which of the following national parks is unique in being a swamp with floating vegetation that supports a rich biodiversity? The world's only floating national park, and that is Keibul Lamjao National Park, which is in Manipur. Now let's look at the fact of the day, Global Gender Gap Report 2021. What is the context? This is today's The Hindu newspaper. It says it is getting from bad to worse for women workers. The pandemic has been very cruel to the women workers. The first Global Gender Gap Report, it was published way back in the year 2006. And who published it? WEF, World Economic Forum. WEF, in its Global Gender Gap Report, what it does, it ranks countries according to gender gap between women and men. In which areas? In 4 key areas. One area is health and survival. The other is education, economy, and politics. What this report does, it measures women's disadvantages as compared to men. But let me briefly tell you about the methodology. For example, if we take into account health and survival, there are few assumptions. Assumptions, for example, men die younger than women. Then how can we say that there is parity between men and women when it comes to survival? If women live at least 6% longer than men, we say that there is parity. If women live less than 6% longer than men, then we say that there is a gender gap. This is the assumption that is made while calculating this report. And this year, 2021, the Global Gender Gap Index has benchmarked 156 countries. That is it from our daily quiz. Thank you for being with us. Have a great evening.